Viva Las Vegas, Len Hochberg. It is time for the RotoWire Rundown, my good friend. I'm Keith Stewart from Read the Line. Of course, my counterpart in crime, the award-winning scribe from RotoWire, Mr. Hochberg. Hey, I got a couple of small talk items before we get going here on the Shriners Children's Open. And one of them is already answered by your hat, but I just wanted to throw it out there with all of this. New York, LA. I know you're a New Yorker originally. Now you're out in LA. I assume you're rooting for the Dodgers over the Mets, but I didn't know if maybe you were a Yankees guy. Where's your baseball affiliation for the Final Four here?
Yeah, well, this is going to sound, I don't know, front runner or wishy-washy or whatever, but I was more of a Yankee fan when I lived in New York than a Met fan. But I've grown to like the Mets. I mean, they're a very likable bunch. The team now is very likable. I mean, they're a lot of fun. So I'm very happy that the Yankees, the Mets, and the Dodgers are all in the Final Four, and don't think I would feel bad if any of them won the title. I don't think it would really, the only thing would be the Guardians. And the Dodgers, I think, are a fun bunch too. They're not as, they got all the money and everything, but they don't seem quite as corporate as the Yankees. Maybe I'm just making that up. I don't know. The Yankees seem very Wall Street. The Dodgers with Ohtani and Mookie and some of the other guys, Kike Hernandez, seem fun. So I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what, it was an amazing week for New York sports over here on the right coast. Last night, you had the Mets game into the Yankees game. The Rangers played. They won. The Jets were hosting the Bills on Monday Night Football. Just one of those nights that really reminds you how special it is to be over in this area sometimes when the leagues align for us, So congratulations to the Mets and the Yanks for winning. My Rangers, of course. And, the Jets they're still the Jets. Although they grabbed Devontae Adams this morning, I heard. So
breaking news. Yes, right here.
There you go. Right on the golf show. We're talking about wide receivers in football.
Adam Schefter of the golf world you are there.
Well, I'm certainly not dressed as nice as him this morning. But speaking of, recapping, forget the sports from yesterday, but I want to get your feedback on the Black Desert Championship. It surprised me, but a lot of the usual negative pundits out there in golf really sort of like this championship. And you and I were pretty excited to watch the entertainment, and it was entertaining. So a couple thoughts on the Black Desert Championship before we move on to Vegas.
Yeah, beautiful course. I kind of figured that was a no-brainer to get a brand new course on the PGA Tour with a PGA Tour event without having years of trial runs and seeing what's going on and everything. But to bring something along so quickly, you just knew it was going to be special, and the PGA Tour really liked it a lot. And I would like to point out that on this show last week, you noted that when the golfers go to a tournament at a new course, it gives an advantage, and people aren't familiar with all the nuance of all the greens and everything. That a bigger advantage than usual goes to the better putters, because they'll have an advantage anyway, but especially at a new track. And lo and behold, Matt McCarty, one of the best putters on the Korn Ferry Tour, leading the Korn Ferry Tour in putting average, won the tournament. So there you go.
Well, that's very nice of you to say. Putting is always the eternal equalizer. Anyone that plays golf knows that when you're playing against somebody who's making just tons and tons of putts, it feels like you can do no right and they can do no wrong. And that translates very well to the PGA Tour. Take it for what it is. Major championships, a lot of venues we see for the first time. There's a little edge there from the RotoWire Rundown. Now, let's jump over to another desert golf course. And I love that Black Desert Championship, by the way, because they gave you plenty of room to land the ball. But if you hit it out in the lava, man, we got all sorts of entertainment going on out there. Plenty of birdies, fits the fall as far as a birdie fest, but at the same time, the guys got after it, and I thought they had a really good field, which was really, nice to see of the fall players that seem to be kind of gearing up as we go through this stretch run of the FedEx Cup Fall. And it got me thinking about something. Now we are into our fourth event, which will be halfway through once we complete this one, as we push towards 125, top 125 to get your card, 51 through 60 to get signature status, and those first couple events in February, the AT&T, and of course the Genesis there in your hometown. So before we get into Vegas, I was thinking to myself, like, a couple of these guys are playing really, really well. Who really has caught your attention so far as we've geared up in the fall here with their play, point blank?
Well, I mean, obviously the winners, that would be very easy to point to the winners, but I don't think that's necessarily your question. The first name that comes to mind is Lucas Glover. And if after touting you a moment ago, I'll tout myself by saying last week here, I thought Lucas Glover, well, he was my pick to win the tournament.
Oh yeah.
And he didn't, but he raced up the leaderboard on Sunday with a 62 and he tied for third. So if at 9,000, you could have played him in your DFS lineup and that would have been beneficial. And maybe unless you just had a straight outright in the betting market, you could have made a few shekels on Lucas Glover. But that was his second tie for third in a row. And he opened the season with a T13 at the Procore. And I've mentioned here that I heard him on the radio a few weeks back where he acknowledged he was out of the playoffs and needed to get better, especially in his mid 40s, to compete with all the young bombers on the tour. And he was going to change his diet, change his fitness, or enhance, however you want to call it. I don't think he's fully gotten there yet. I think he's talking about the off season in the winter break, to really turn things around to get ready for January, but he's already seemingly taking things very seriously. So he far and away to me is someone who not only can I look at having a great fall season, but I think it looks like it's going to translate to the 2025 season for Lucas Glover.
A couple guys that catch my attention. The easy one to say is McCarty, because he's now won 4 times, 3 on the Korn Ferry Tour and once on the PGA Tour in the last couple months. The guy obviously can roll the rock. He's a scoring machine. That certainly fits the theme for the fall, which is always like get to 20 under and you have a chance to win. So there's no doubt he catches my attention. Hopefully the wind in his sails continue to blow and it's not just a one-hit wonder there in the fall. But Seamus Power has been playing really, really well. And the place that caught my attention was back at the FedEx St. Jude when I was there, and he finished 10th. And that's a ball striker's golf course. And we hadn't heard much from Seamus Power all season. And then all of a sudden, he just had some pretty steady finishes in the summertime. Then he goes there. Then he travels over to the Irish Open because it's Seamus Power. And he gets top 26 there. And then he goes 11th at the Sanderson. He goes 11th there at the Black Desert. And he gains 5 strokes on approach. Now he's going home to Vegas. A very interesting guy that seems to be playing very, very well. Another interesting guy that's playing well, Bo Hostler. Big Bo. I don't know what happened in the little break from the end of the season till now, but Hostler, man, I tell you what, runner-up at the Sanderson, could have very easily won that golf tournament if he learned how to hit driver on the last hole. And he was 11th there at the Black Desert. A really good putter, really good short game player, and his history over there at the TPC Summerlin, where we're going to play the Shriners this week, is quite good. So there's 2 guys there, of course, with McCarty, but there's 2 guys there that are definitely on my radar that it seems like they're trending as they go.
I am back. I disappeared. My Chrome browser just shut down without me touching a thing. So, but I did hear you talking about Seamus Power, and that is a good call. He had a very underwhelming 2024 season. I think the 10th that you mentioned at the end of the season was his first top 10 of the year. He had a lot of. He didn't miss many cuts, but he didn't have many high finishes. Sort of speaks to someone who's not a good putter, but he's a good call. And one other guy on my radar is having a good fall is 2 tournaments in a row for Bo Hostler. who, he lost the playoff to Kevin Yu in the whatever tournament that was, the Sanderson,
Yep.
and he came back and he was 11th last week, and he's playing again this week. So his name is going to come up momentarily again for me when we get into the names. But yeah, that was really weird. My entire browser just shut down everything, and you were able to keep going, which was amazing. That's fantastic.
Well, we have proof that you certainly didn't hear what I said because the name I said after Seamus Power was Bo Hostler.
Oh, I did not hear that at all. Did I?
Yeah.
I did not hear that at all.
Hey, it's
But
not a shtick, folks. This is classic. I mean, when people are playing well like Bo Hostler, they catch our attention. And Len and I look at these things every week. That was pretty funny when you mentioned Bo. I was like, Len wasn't here. That's for sure.
I'm just amazed I was able to get back so quickly here after some sort of nuclear meltdown on my laptop. But anyway.
Hey, it's like we're married at this point, after all these episodes of doing it, I just keep talking, right? And you're not even listening. So it's all good. It's all good. All right, let's skip ahead to the Shriners out there at TPC Summerlin. Here's a host site, golf course that we know very well. This has been a mainstay in the fall schedule for a while now. Tom Kim has won 2 in a row. Only a couple guys this century outside of Tiger have won the same tournament 3 times in a row. Last time was Stricker. Before that was the Century, or at the time, the Tournament of Champions was Stewart Appleby. Of
Hmm.
course, Tiger's done this 6 times, and in 2 of those, he did it 4 years in a row. If anyone's counting, but Tiger's still Tiger. When you look at TPC Summerlin, and you're building out your lineups, Len. Uh, what are you looking for as far as a skill set? Where are you finding your little separation points, your edges for the guys that you're featuring?
The blueprint for Summerlin seems very, very similar to me to what we saw last week.
Oh, yeah.
We're in the desert, we're in the mountains, we're at elevation, we're at a course that isn't super long, but everyone's going to get longer because not quite. I think elevation is roughly 2,000 this week. I think it was roughly 3,000 last week, so not quite, but still a pretty good boost. We have wide fairways like last week. We have large greens like last week. So I think it's a very similar thing. And I think we can look at some guys who did well last week. I mean, not only they playing well because they did well last week, but we already saw them play well on a track that I think is similar enough that we can take last week's information and use it again this week.
Yeah, I'm going to start with the putter again. And even though we know this venue, it just seems like year after year. I mean, you look at the last 5 winners, right? The average winning score is 23 under par. So if you need to start making birdies, you need to start making birdie putts. But those last 5 winners, they've averaged gaining over 7 strokes on the field with their flat stick. Now, even if you take Kevin Na out of there, who had an uber year with the flat stick, it's still these guys are averaging over 5 strokes gained. So I think you really need to be able to putt on these bent grass, large, flat, birdie making surfaces. So I'm going to start there. The second place is that the par 4s here are really where you need to attack. Some people will point toward the par 5s, but there's only 3 of them. Some people will say, oh, you need to survive on the par 3s. And there's a difficult set of par 3s here. 3 of the 4 play over par, but the winners tend to gain a ton of strokes on those par 4s. That's where you have to make your hay. And when you look back at Utah, that leaderboard, you bring up a very good point. Who played the par 4s the best? I am sure that's going to translate into a very similar setting this week. And then, quite simply, just like last week, keep it out of the lava. Except this week, it's desert and homes. But if you keep it on the green stuff, there's very little rough. I was out there last year covering the event. I couldn't believe how wide the green landing areas are. And this is why these guys go so deep there. So, I mean, Tom Kim, who's won the last 2 years, he's averaged 26 subpar scores over his last 2 wins. So, I mean, you could definitely go deep here. So that's where I'm looking for my little edges this week when it comes to the Shriners Children's Open.
What's interesting this week, I was checking last night, there's going to be weather this week.
Yeah.
There is an issue with weather. And I think I always tell people that, at least playing DFS, even though we're talking now and we'll give our picks now on Tuesday morning, you don't have to wait. You can wait till Wednesday late at night to check the weather and lock in your picks. I saw golfodds.com had the over under at 15.5. And
Oh, there's going to be that much wind.
and I said, okay, what is going on here? And golfodds.com, by the way, Jeff Sherman, who was in Vegas. So he's going to know this. I mean, he's going to know it anyway, but he's going to know it double because he's in Vegas. So it's going to be 90 degrees at the beginning of the week, 90 on Tuesday, 90 degrees on Wednesday, at least the forecast I checked, the latest for it. And then by Friday, the temperature is not going to get out of the 60s. It's going to dip, and there is going to be some strong winds on Friday. And it'll warm up a little on Saturday, but it's still going to be pretty windy on Saturday. But putting the over-under at 15.5 on a tournament that it's north of 20 under every year means that this is a seismic change. And I don't think that necessarily changes a lot of what we have to do, but I don't think the scoring is going to be quite where it is. And just to advise people, check the weather closer to the lock, or even hold off on your sportsbook bets or whatever until you really get a handle on this. There really might be an edge to tee times, and we don't know that yet. We don't have tee times yet.
Yeah, we're going back to the Patrick Cantley year where he won at 9 under in a playoff, right? What was that, 2017? So
Something like that.
it
Yeah.
sounds to me like, yeah, and it can get nasty out there because it's wide open spaces. So if that wind kicks up in the desert, it's still target golf. You've got like 92 bunkers there, 4 holes with water in play. There's definitely some trouble. So great point there, as always, there, Mr. Len Hochberg, and a nice segue for us to start to talk about where we're going to feature our lineups and who's going to be in them. Let's go to the 10K land. You got 3 guys there, 3 guys you normally would, well, maybe Tom Kim you would, but 2 other guys you normally wouldn't see up there above 10,000. Are you featuring anyone up here of these 3, or where are you going?
Yeah, Tom Kim is the top price guy. He's the 2-time defending champion. He seems like an obvious pick, but I'm not going to go to Tom Kim. The last 2 times we've seen Tom Kim, one, he was imploding at the end of the FedEx St. Jude to get knocked out of the top 50. Just a incredible turn of events for him. And then we saw him at the President's Cup, and whatever he was doing at the President's Cup, he was doing a lot more talking than playing well. So those are my last 2 visions of Tom Kim. So I'm going to wait and see on Tom Kim and see where his head is at and what's going on here. But the other 2 guys in the 10,000s were in the top 50, and they've secured a big chunk of their 2025 season already. Davis Thompson, who really came on strong and really, really came into his own toward the second half of the season. I like him. And Taylor Pendrith, not only was Taylor Pendrith the top 50, he was a top 30. He made it to the Tour Championship. He didn't have a great President's Cup, but I'm not going to hold that completely against him. But I do like the 2 of them better in the 10,000s than Tom Kim.
Down to the 9,000s. We've got some popular names, guys we could have mentioned in the first segment that we were talking about, guys that have been playing well. McCarty, Mitchell, Jaeger. In the 9,000s, who are you featuring?
Yeah, Bo Hostler, who I understand you mentioned earlier.
He came up,
But
yeah.
yeah, he, playing well, 7th last year. If you have a guy who's playing well now and has a good history of some degree on a course, I mean, I don't think, I don't want to overthink those things by some, strokes gained, whatever. Guy's playing well, he's playing well. And Eric Cole does not have to be playing a lot now. He's a top 50 guy. So he's set in the, but Eric Cole, we know he plays, he makes Sung Jae Im look like a slacker. This is Eric Cole's 32nd start of the season and 3rd of the fall. And he did skip last week, but of course he's not skipping this week because he tied for 3rd here last year. So he likes this course as well. He's those 2 guys in the 9,000s.
Down to the 8s. There's a guy that catches everyone's attention when it comes to TPC Summerlin. He's got 4 top 10s in the last 5 starts that he's played there. That's Adam Hadwin. The Canadian likes his desert golf. Do you like the Canadian this week, or who else do you like in the 8,000s?
Yeah, there's a bunch of Canadians who seemingly do well here. I mean, Pendrith had a good year last year here. Hadwin has had multiple good years here. Nick Taylor has, who's not playing very well right now, has had good success here. I don't know if this qualifies as Canadian snowbirds to Vegas, but there is a lineage there of some degree. But I do like Hadwin this week. You know, his season was heavily front loaded. He was a top 50 guy, but he did not do much in the second half. He was all really in the front half. But if he's going to find a happy place to turn things around, this would be the week. Cam Davis is another guy I like this week. We haven't seen Cam Davis since the BMW, where he actually finished fifth. And you thought that would be, I thought that would be enough to put him over the top and get him onto the international team. But it did not. It was maybe one of the more curious pre-President's Cup decisions that Mike Weir made. And lastly, guy we talked about last week, this guy is a big deal in Vegas, Harry Hall. He's on the interview schedule, former UNLV guy. And, you know, if a guy goes on the media session, the pre-PGA tournament puts out about 5 or 6 guys to roll in front of the media on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And Harry Hall is one of them. So he's a big deal in this town, and he's played this course a lot. And he was okay last week in a similar type setting, but I do like him in the 8s as well.
Going down to the 7s, we've got 2 already fall winners listed down there. Kevin Hughes down there, Patton Kizzires down there. And in the comments today, people are asking about Lee Hodges. So when it comes to the 7,000s, give me your thoughts on Lee Hodges first, and then who are you featuring in the 7K range?
Yeah, I did give Lee Hodges some consideration. I mean, I pretty much looked through every guy in the field almost to consider them. I mean, sometimes at the bottom of the 6,000s, they're just not going to spend too much time there. I do like Lee Hodges. He didn't make my pick. I could see where he would fit this week, though. But Matty Schmidt, and I didn't mention Matty Schmidt earlier in guys who were playing well in the fall, but Matty Schmidt is one of them. He was 5th last week. He was 16th the week before at the Sanderson Farms. He's done a nice job of cementing himself in the top 125. He didn't make the playoffs. He's not like that, but he was sort of going into the fall. He was not secure, but these 2 finishes will be enough to pretty much ensure that he will not fall out of the top 125 by the end of the season next month. So he'll be back next year on tour, and he's shown flashes. Eric Van Rooyen, I just think, you know, he just seems to have a good fit. His skill set is a good fit for this golf course. I hate to be, you know, I don't mean to be vague like that, but I just sort of think that he is a good fit this week. And Ben Silverman, another Canadian, you know, who does not have the course history here that some of the other guys that mentioned, but Ben Silverman is an elite putter. And I think anytime you can find an elite putter at a birdie fest, it's not a bad way to go.
Down to the 6,000s. Now, you always come up with great stories down here, but I was doing some digging because I wanted to try and catch your attention. So does a 6'8" Christo Lamprecht from Georgia Tech catch your attention? And if you're going to say him, then I'm going to laugh because I was looking through the 6,000s, and of course, you know, we get down in the basement dwellers. I mean, nobody's better than Len Hochberg coming up with at least 1 or 2 guys that are always going to make the cut, that are always going to do a decent job and get you some fantasy points. Is Christo Lamprecht the story you're interested in this week? Or, you know, who you got down there in the 6K land?
Well, I am interested. He's not a pick, but I did notice he was in the field. I always look when the field comes out, I go to the PGA Tour website and I sort it by world ranking. And you go all the way to the bottom and you see some interesting names who are in on sponsor invites or whatever. And there's always some local college kids who are in the field, which I think the PGA Tour does a great job of. But Lamprecht is in the field. He has not been playing well. I mean, 6'8", South African, British amateur in 2023, champion, British amateur champion in 2023. But he's been playing on the Corn Ferry Tour, and I was very surprised to see, had not been following him, he's really been struggling on the Corn Ferry. So not playing him this week. I'm not sure what the connection was to Vegas, why he got a sponsor invite this week. Georgia Tech guy, but whatever, he's there.
Yeah.
Michael Kim is on my list. Just a good, a decent player. It's actually become Michael Kim's become a great follow on Twitter. He's really been uh,
Yeah.
just speaking his mind and doing a lot, saying a lot of different things. Some of them are golf tips, some of them are behind the scenes golf things that are going on in the politics of the world of golf right now. He's a very interesting follow, but I think he's a good play at 6,900. Carson Young had him last week on the show. He was in the 6,000s last week. He tied for 11th, so that was nice bang for your buck right
Really good.
there. I do like him again. There's not a lot down here that I do really like. Davis Riley at 6,600. His best club is his putter, and along the lines of Ben Silverman, although he's not quite as good a putter as Ben Silverman. When in doubt, find a guy who can roll the rock and get some birdies at a course like this. And always want to get 6,500 in the low. Or this was a tough one. Nate Lashley at 6,500. I don't expect much. He's a very vanilla guy. He makes cuts without high finishes. He's made a bunch of cuts here in a row, but nothing in the top 30 or anything. So if you're really strapped for cash in DFS play and you need to get a sixth guy into your lineup and you don't have a lot, he looks like a good play to get to the weekend. And I always say get to the weekend and then maybe you can catch fire, but you want to get that sixth guy through to the weekend.
Nate the Great, digging deep, of course, always, Mr. Len Hochberg. We'll skip over to the betting side, and you're going to hear a name that maybe we've heard once before. So deja vu all over again. I'm going Bo Hostler. He started the week out at plus 3,300. That number's been diving, so I'm not the only one that's thinking this. 7th last year at the Shriners. Before we started the fall run, I ran some numbers on the last 2 years on who the best players were. Basically cumulatively strokes gained in these fall events, because it's basically the same events year after year, the same sites. I know Black Desert's new, but the other 7 were the same golf courses. And Hostler in those 11 events, he's like 13th in this field in strokes gained. He's gaining over 1.1 rounds, 1.1 strokes per round, right? So, I mean, that's playing pretty well on these golf courses. And certainly, runner up at Sanderson, 11th last week. I think that, he has 6 career starts here at the Shriners, and he's averaging over 5 strokes total gained against the field. So I think, just like you, I try not to overthink things. I think both betting picks this week fall into that genre. And then my second guy, just a little bit more than that down the odds board at plus 4,500, is Harris English. I really liked what I saw out of Harris English last week at the Black Desert Championship, and we're going to do the same thing this week. Now, Harris, a couple editions of the Shriners years ago, he's got a top 20, he's got a top 5. He has played TPC Summerlin well before. He played really nicely last week. He gained over 5 with the putter. He's ranked 54th on the points list. If he goes deep this week, if he wins, he's done for the fall till he goes home to Sea Island. But if he goes top 5 this week, and I expect him to push to play hard, to not have to go to Japan, to not have to go to Bermuda or maybe Mexico, right? He's going to solidify his spot in that signature status. And when you think about it, in this field, how many players have 4 wins? Maybe a Daniel Berger, like even Tom Kim doesn't have 4 wins to his name. And I just feel like there's a lot of talent in Harris English. I was thinking about that. Like, this guy needs to make a push this fall, and he's been doing it. And I just really like the fit. Man, that guy can roll the rock, and he looked good last week out there in Utah. So those are the 2 guys that catch my attention. Thoughts from your side on either Bo Hostler or Harris English?
English is certainly one of the best guys in the field. I mean, he had a great first half to the season, and I went to him often. He was so low priced, and he just wasn't getting his price up, and he just seemed like almost free money every week. At least put him in part of your lineup. He did have a troublesome second half, but very good last week. And you're right. He's won 4 times. His best has been better than most of the guys in this field's best. So he had a run a few years ago where he was great. And and I know he's a big fantasy football player. So I know he's well engaged in sports right now, and maybe this takes his mind off golf and lets him free up to play free and easy and stuff. And Hopefully, he just doesn't have too many Jets on his team.
Well, he's got another jet this morning. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's like I look at the talent that he has, and you look at this field, and when these guys pop in your model, and you're looking at Davis Thompson or Patrick Fishburne or Harry Hall, and you could come up with all these reasons why. But if Harris English goes and shoots 18 under, great scrambler, great putter, he drove the ball nicely last week, was nice on approach, like you could definitely just see him like just kind of cruising around that golf course in his very vanilla demeanor, just shooting, nice 17, 18, 19 under based upon the wind, and then just walking away with the title with the showgirls. And you're like, man,
Hmm.
that made a whole heck of sense. And like, how did I miss that? So I just, at this point in the fall, I'm really interested in the guys that want that signature status, like an Eric Cole. He's another person who could jump right in there and play very well, because these guys, they know how important it is to get into those signature events. So and he's got so much talent, Harris English. I mean, in the field, he's a top 5 talent guy, and that's where I want to go with it. And you know where else we're going to go? Well, next week we're going to go back to the rundown at 11:15 my time here over on the East Coast, and out there for Len at 8:15 a.m. on the West Coast. Hopefully you'll still be wearing that Dodgers hat. Hopefully my Yankees will still be playing baseball. Thanks for everyone for tuning in the comments. We appreciate that. And we'll see you all in a week. Enjoy the Shriners Children's Open.